There is a version of the royal story that gets told over and over. It's the version with tiaras and titles, with balcony appearances and headline-grabbing feuds. And then there's the version that's actually true, quieter, slower, and, in its own way, far more interesting. This is that version. This is the real story of Lady Louise Windsor. Louise Windsor's life did not start the way most royal lives do, with a carefully staged photograph outside a hospital and a wave to the cameras. She was born prematurely, just before midnight on the 8th of November, 2003, at Frimley Park Hospital in Surrey. Her mother, then known as Sophie, Countess of Wessex, had been rushed there by ambulance from the family home at Bagshot Park. It was a frightening start for a newborn who would spend her earliest days in far more precarious circumstances than the public initially understood. That difficult beginning turned out to be, in hindsight, a kind of preview for the rest of her life. Louise has never been the royal who arrives with fanfare. She has been the one who shows up quietly, does the work, and lets the results speak. That pattern has held for more than 2 decades now, and it is why so many people who follow the royal family closely consider her one of its most quietly compelling members. Louise is the elder child and only daughter of Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. She has a younger brother, James, Earl of Wessex. Unlike some of her cousins, Louise was not raised with the expectation that she would become a full-time working royal. Her parents made a deliberate choice, one that has been widely reported over the years, to give both of their children as normal an upbringing as possible. That decision shaped everything that followed. Louise attended a state school rather than an exclusive private academy favored by other branches of the family. She grew up riding horses, developing what would become a lifelong and quite serious passion for carriage driving, a sport her late great-grandfather, Prince Philip, helped popularize within the family. She was present at his memorial service in March 2022, a rare and visible moment of grief for a young woman who has otherwise guarded her private life carefully. She did appear at major royal set pieces over the years. She joined her family on the balcony for Trooping the Color in 2022. She attended the Platinum Jubilee National Service of Thanksgiving and the Platinum Party at the Palace that same year, marking her grandmother's 70 years on the throne. These were significant visible moments, but they were also the exception rather than the rule for a young woman who has largely chosen to build a life away from cameras. In 2022, Louise began studying English literature at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, the same university where her cousin Prince William famously met his future wife, Catherine. Louise's own university years followed a very different script. She kept a famously low public profile throughout her time there, focusing on her studies and notably joining the university's Officers Training Corps, where she reportedly developed a genuine enthusiasm for military life. That interest wasn't just a passing hobby. According to her own LinkedIn profile, Louise has expressed real interest in pursuing a career in the military, diplomacy, or law, 3 notably serious, service-oriented paths, and a world away from the ceremonial role many assumed she might eventually settle into. If she does choose to enlist, some royal commentators have noted she could make history within the family in a way few of her peers could match. In the summer of 2026, Louise graduated from St. Andrews with her English degree, a milestone that was marked publicly, if modestly, by the palace and covered warmly by royal watchers. It closed out 4 years in which she deliberately kept her academic life separate from her royal one, something that seems to have suited her well. Perhaps the most telling detail about Louise's personality, the one that keeps coming up whenever people who know her are asked to describe her, is this. While she was a full-time university student, she asked for a part-time job. Louise took on paid work at the Royal Windsor Horse Show, an event her late grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, adored throughout her life. It wasn't a ceremonial role or an honorary title. It was an actual paid position, and by most accounts, it was entirely her own idea. She was photographed working at the 2026 event, taking part in the carriage driving meet on its final day. Sources close to the family have described her as remarkably grounded and hardworking, the kind of person you genuinely wouldn't peg as royalty if you didn't already know. She reportedly also took on administrative work at the offices of Windsor Castle during her university years, fitting real employment in around her studies rather than leaning on her family name. That work ethic has occasionally come at the cost of royal appearances. She has, on more than one occasion, skipped family events, including an Easter service at Windsor Castle, apparently prioritizing her own commitments over ceremonial obligations. It's a small thing, but it says something about where her priorities sit. If there is one thread that runs through Louise's entire life, it's her devotion to carriage driving, the sport Prince Philip loved and effectively passed down to her. She has competed at events across the country, including the National Carriage Driving Championships, where in the summer of 2025 she was spotted with someone many royal watchers believe is her boyfriend, Felix de Silvaclamp. The two were photographed together at more than one competition that year, sharing a laugh behind the scenes and reportedly having a quiet lunch together before Louise's events. Onlookers described Felix as visibly supportive on the sidelines, cheering her on and clearly invested in her progress in the sport. Neither Louise nor the palace has confirmed the relationship formally, in keeping with the family's general approach to her private life, but it has become one of the more talked-about threads in coverage of her over the past year. She also continued to compete at the Royal Windsor Horse Show and other driving events into 2026, a passion that seems to bring her a kind of ease that formal royal duties rarely do. In July 2026, Louise reached a personal milestone tied directly to her family's legacy. She joined 600 young people at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh to receive her Duke of Edinburgh's Gold Award, the highest level of an achievement scheme her great-grandfather Prince Philip founded back in 1956. She received her certificate from her own father, Prince Edward, who now serves as patron of the award in his father's place. It was a moment that connected three generations quietly and without fanfare. Philip, who created the program to help young people build confidence and resilience. Edward, now its steward. And Louise, one of hundreds of young recipients rather than a singled-out royal guest of honor. That, in itself, tells you something about how the family has chosen to position her. For 2 years running now, Louise has chosen not to attend Trooping the Color, missing her Uncle King Charles's official birthday parade in both 2025 and 2026. It's a notable absence given how central that event is to the royal calendar, and it has drawn some commentary. But it fits the broader pattern of a young woman who seems far more interested in horse shows, university seminars, and paid work than in ceremonial appearances. As of the summer of 2026, following her graduation, Louise is reportedly taking a gap year before deciding exactly where to focus her energy next. Whether that means the military, diplomacy, law, or simply more time in the saddle remains to be seen. What is clear is that she is not rushing the decision, and she is not being pushed into one either. It's worth being precise about Louise's actual constitutional position, because so much speculation swirls around her that the facts sometimes get lost. As of 2026, she is 17th in line to the British throne, a position far enough removed from the succession that the pressures placed on her cousins simply don't apply to her in the same way. She is not currently an official working royal. She does not carry out engagements on behalf of the crown in any formal capacity. She does, on occasion, appear at major royal events alongside her parents, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, who are themselves senior working royals. She wore her coronation dress again for Trooping the Color in 2024, a small but charming detail that made headlines at the time, a royal choosing practicality and re-wearing an outfit rather than commissioning something new, not unlike her Aunt Princess, and who has long been known for exactly that kind of understated thrift. But fundamentally, Louise's life is her own to shape. There is no confirmed plan for her to take on a formal title or a full-time royal role, and nothing in her own public statements suggests she's angling for one. If anything, the opposite seems true, a young woman building an actual career with actual qualifications on her own terms. So why does Louise keep showing up in headlines if she's actively avoiding the spotlight? Partly, it's precisely because of that avoidance. In an institution frequently associated with pageantry, a young royal who asks for a part-time job skips ceremonial events to focus on her studies and expresses interest in the military or the law reads as refreshingly down-to-earth. People are drawn to authenticity, and by most accounts from those close to her, That's exactly what Louise offers. There's also her lineage. She was born during the reign of her grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, and has often been described, informally and without any official confirmation, as having held a special place in her grandmother's affections. Whatever truth lies behind that description, Louise has never traded on it publicly. She hasn't given interviews trading on nostalgia for her grandmother, hasn't positioned herself as any kind of successor to a legacy. She has simply gotten on with her own life, her degree, her job, her sport, her relationships, while the family name sits quietly in the background rather than at the center of the story. As Louise moves into her gap year, the honest answer is that nobody, including perhaps Louise herself, knows exactly what comes next. Military service, a career in diplomacy, a path through law, all three have been floated as genuine interests rather than idle speculation, based on her own words. Any of them would represent a striking departure from the traditional trajectory of a minor royal, and any of them would likely keep her out of the ceremonial spotlight rather than pulling her further into it. What has seemed consistent across every stage of her life so far, from her difficult premature birth to her low-key university years to her insistence on earning her own paycheck, is a preference for substance over spectacle. She has built a life that looks less like a royal fairy tale and more like the life of any determined, hard-working young graduate figuring out her next move. It just happens to come with a title she rarely uses and a family history she's chosen not to lean on. In an institution often defined by image, Lady Louise Windsor has quietly built something else, a reputation for being exactly who she appears to be. No secret estates, no hidden feuds, no dramatic reveals. Just a young woman with a degree, a job history, a horse she loves, and a future she seems determined to build for herself.